It's no secret that comic books had just a terrible 2023. We're into 2024, and there's several things that I'm just done with. I don't want to deal with anymore. So many mistakes that are perpetrated over and over and over, not only by Marvel, but DC Comics. And eventually, you just kind of get to your wit's end and you said, enough is enough.
Enough is enough!
I'm done with this shit, and that's basically what this video is. My ode to the stuff that's just personal grievances. This is the stuff that chaps my ass. Perhaps not the stuff that's absolutely destroying the comic book industry as a whole, but the stuff that's killing my joy and my want to return to comic books every single week. And I do it because I love you guys, but my goodness. DC and Marvel Comics, try my patience personally, and I want to hear from you guys. What is the comic shit you're absolutely done with? I know I'm not the only one that's fed up with a lot of the repetitive nature of all the crap going on at Marvel and DC. First up, I'm done with Crisis on Infinite Lesbians. This has gone so overboard, it's not even funny. Almost irregardless of the publisher, Marvel or DC, they announced that they're going to do a miniseries with a female character, normally established, but sometimes it could be a new female character. Inevitably, it's a writer you've never ever heard of in your life. You're like, do they even write comic books? You see the name, you go do a Google search or whatever, and then of course they're a YA graphic novel writer that specializes in LGBTQ like fanfic type of stories. And there's nothing wrong with writing comic books or stories for LGBT communities, but it doesn't really translate to the mainstream. And it wouldn't be a problem if these writers could actually go out and actually write a comic book story, a superhero-based comic book story, but they all end up being these really boring, lame-ass slice-of-life books about like dead naming and what it's like to fall in love with every single female that comes along within 5 feet of the protagonist throughout the life of the book. And it just gets so boring. And this week, I think it's jackpot number one for Marvel Comics. Why Marvel Comics go out and hire this writer and put them on a Spider-Man adjacent title? Obviously, DC have been going hard in the paint for quite some time. We got the nauseating miniseries Hawk Girl from Jadzia Axelrod. What do we got going on right now? Just about to finish up Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, Joanne Stair, a person who legitimately doesn't know what a hero is, like what a heroic act is. It's just them playing out like their midlife crisis fantasy of what it would be like to be 12 years old again, but have no rules on them or something. And it's not news to Marvel or DC that going out there and hiring writers that don't actually identify as comic book writers and then putting them on superhero comic books is basically a recipe for disaster. I guess the first big example that I can kind of come up with just off of the top of my head is Gabby Rivera on America Chavez or whatever that thing was. That thing was an absolute disaster. And I wonder why these ideas aren't translating to the MCU as well. So many lesbians infiltrating the comic book industry that don't want to tell stories about Superman. They don't want to tell stories about Green Lantern. They want to tell stories about themselves in the skin of superheroes. And it's gotten so painful at this point. I just roll my eyes every time I see a new name by a recognizable female superhero because I know inevitably it's going to be some YA novelist that's a lesbian. And that is just the hiring practices right now. None of them have ever succeeded, but my goodness, Marvel and DC will not stop this practice whatsoever. Absolutely done with that one. Another thing that's really just grinds my gears. This is more of a Marvel Comics problem than a DC Comics problem. But the Marvel Comics idea that the most exciting thing they can do with one of their heroes is to make 100 versions of them and have them all team up together. Obviously, we've seen lots of stuff with the Spider-Verse, and once you do it the first time, sure, it's kind of a novel idea. It's something different. But at this point, there's nothing novel about it. It's just another gimmick that they use, and it's less and less successful time over time. I got people coming out of the woodwork going, you got to read the last issue of Wolverine. Oh, you mean the one with 40 versions of Sabretooth teaming up? I'm so done with this concept, you don't even know. I'm having to hold myself back from exploding on my friends that are trying to tell me this Wolverine book is great. Sure, there's a great final page reveal where different members of Wolverine's family have been like disemboweled and cut into parts and spelled out happy birthday. I thought that was exciting. But everything leading up to that sucked ass. I don't even want to get into the Dadverine stuff, which I'm done with, but it's not going to be a part of this video. But every single character having a million different variants of them and all coming together in the Sabretooth stuff, like half a dozen of them don't even have heads. And one of them is the Captain America. Like, why would Sabretooth ever become Captain America in any universe? It doesn't make sense. It's just a fucking variant comic, but somehow placed inside an actual comic book. It makes no sense whatsoever. I'm tired of seeing multiple Infinite Spider-Gwens. I'm tired of seeing all these characters where there's just so many different versions of them. And especially when they team up, but even like that stupid Avengers Forever, Avengers Assemble, Jason Aaron crap, where there's like, oh yeah, we've had versions of every single Marvel hero since 1 million BC. Oh yeah, don't kill off the legacy of the heroes and make them completely irrelevant and nothing special about them. Like, how many different versions of freaking Ghost Rider can we have in 1 year? How many different versions of freaking Doctor Strange do we need? How many different versions of Wolverine can we put up with? Stop with the variant characters. They're not even trying to do legacy characters like they do at DC at Marvel Comics. They're literally just copying their own characters, throwing a pun on it, perhaps a new name, and saying, yes, that's a new version of the character. It's very frustrating. That would really piss me off. I feel like fucking Sam Kinison. Give me a smoke, man. Let me talk about what fucking pisses me off here. But now that we're on to that, let's get over to DC Comics. There is one comic book character by the end of 2023, and it was certainly before that, but by the end, I was so done with, it's not even funny, fucking Amanda Waller. Like, can you please stop with Amanda Waller? I understand that you really like the portrayal of the character, you know, in the movies, in Suicide Squad, the Peacemaker show, and all that kind of stuff. I get it. But Amanda Waller is literally everywhere in DC Comics. Go read Wonder Woman, Amanda Waller. Go read Green Lantern, Amanda Waller. Go read Titans Beast World, Amanda Waller. Go read anything with Peacemaker on the title, Amanda Waller. Go read anything with Suicide Squad on the title, Amanda Waller. I get it. You guys think Amanda Waller is the bee's knees, but she's really not. She's just like a government bureaucrat that's kind of evil. Not exactly the most compelling villain out there. You know, if you gave the character a little bit of time to breathe and just had her show up every now and again, just to remind you that she's doing stuff behind the scenes and did something big, it would probably be impactful. But Amanda Waller hasn't left the pages of DC Comics in years now. And in 2023 is just a culmination of it. I can't take it anymore. Now, I will plug the Patreon just a little bit here. I still do the comic book solicitations for DC and Marvel Comics on the Patreon because they're just a little bit too long for YouTube. And there are 4 things during the solicitations when they come up, I just ignore the solicitation outright completely from that moment on. First up, Mark Waid, don't care anymore. Jackson Lanzig, Colin Kelly. When I see their names, I'm moving right on. I don't take the book seriously. Steve Fox is another one. Nothing he does can be taken seriously. And the other one is Amanda Waller in the solicitation. When I see the name, I just move on because I know there's nothing compelling there anymore. They have overdone the character to the degree that I can't take, you know, what should be somewhat of a compelling villain at this point. Like, I get it. You like Amanda Waller. Let's find a new villain to highlight, or how about take a little step back, have Peacemaker not be your complete bitch boy, which he is in every single comic book series out there. You know, it's just, it's so repetitive and so boring that the agent of chaos behind everything, the one person that's really destroying all DC heroes, is Amanda Waller. Superman would destroy her in a second. Batman would destroy her in a second. Flash would destroy her in a second. Everybody that has superpowers could destroy Amanda Waller in a matter of seconds, even if she had the Suicide Squad. They're not exactly the most competent team out there. In fact, the Suicide Squad would turn on her and kill her as well. There's nothing wrong with having a non-powered villain be a central focus of your story. You can certainly get away with that, Joker, Lex Luthor and stuff. But we don't even see Joker as much as Amanda Waller. That character is so played out, it's not even funny. My balls are completely chapped, and it says Amanda Waller right on them. I've had enough. Another thing that's really making me mad, and this has been a long time coming, Marvel Comics have become so infatuated with reboots. They're always trying to get back to a #1 issue. So they would constantly reboot Captain Marvel. I think it had like 13 reboots in 14 years or something like that. Always trying to get back to that #1 issue so you can get the bump as far as speculators and all that stuff and orders from the comic book shop. Moving on and then going back to the #1 issue. But they have become so lazy with it. And I do remember the first time I saw it, I believe it was Captain Marvel. Was it Kelly Sue? I don't think it was Kelly Sue DeConnick. I think it was Kelly Thompson was writing Captain Marvel, got rebooted. Kelly Thompson still in the book with the same artist. No, you can't do that. And now Marvel are doing it over and over again. They don't even change the artist anymore. Now they did when they rebooted Captain Britain to Knights of X from Excalibur. I can't even remember all the titles. That's basically been one storyline over 3 or 4 different comic book titles, all from Tini Howard, all telling the exact same linear story, never changing anything, just rebooting it back to a #1 issue so they can get some type of sales bump, so sales can decline even worse, even faster. And she's not the only one doing it. Remember when they did the Death of Doctor Strange? And then we went into Strange, and now we're into Doctor Strange, all written by Jed MacKay, all a part of the same timeline, all a part of the same linear story. 3 #1 issues that they got out of that one. Absolute ridiculous what they're doing. They did it with Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto's Daredevil. Remember when we got Devil's Reign, the big event? What happens at the end of that one? Daredevil #1, Chip Zdarsky, Marco Cicchetto. Do you recognize the names? They'd only been doing the character for 2.5 years at that point. It's so transparent what Marvel Comics are doing that they're just doing it for the sales bump. There's no change whatsoever in the story, and it's just very frustrating. Jed MacKay is doing the same thing that he did with Doctor Strange with Moon Knight right now. Been writing Moon Knight for 2.5 years. Fantastic series. Alessandro Cappuccio's been the artist basically the entire time. Vengeance of the Moon Knight #1, Jed MacKay, Alessandro Cappuccio once again, starting off exactly where Moon Knight number 30 or 31 or whatever the last issue was ended. It is literally a continuation of the exact same story, but they needed a #1 issue. And I fucking hate the way Marvel Comics cannot continue on with anything. Moon Knight had perfectly respectable sales, and it will likely continue to have some okay sales, but I do think you'll have more decline because you invited people to jump off once again while telling the exact same story. Man, Marvel Comics just pisses me off with all their lame-ass gimmickry. But they got nothing on DC Comics. I think DC Comics probably, as a single publisher, have the thing that offends me the most, the thing that just pisses me off more than anything anyone else is doing in comic books. The way that they do their event tie-ins is atrocious. Now, Night Terrors was a little bit different. They just stopped everything, and you got Night Terrors books with every character, and I think you got an initial issue and a last issue, and they just halted the entire line, which was very, very, very stupid. It was absolutely terrible the way that they did it. But for the most part, the way DC Comics have been doing events, and it's been for a couple of years now, you get the miniseries itself, which is the event series, and it's normally 1 to 6 issues. Sometimes you might get out to 8 or whatever. Normally it has an alpha issue, an omega issue. Sometimes I'll call it first strike and, I don't know, last out, whatever the fucking names of them are. It's alpha, omega, or whatever. And then they have these just awful, god-awful anthology tie-ins with the worst writers you've ever seen in your life. Beast World from Tom Taylor is shockingly good, despite losing Ivan Reis as the artist after the 2nd issue. It's continued on with the quality of the book. The story is pretty compelling, and there's lots of action, and it's a fun read. Go and read the tie-ins. They have nothing to do with the main series. It's just a bunch of short stories from writers like Sina Grace and Megan Fitzmartin, people you would never want to pay for their stories in their lives, and nothing is ever fleshed out. Like in Marvel Comics, at least in Luke Cage Gang War, you get a Luke Cage story. In fucking DC Comics Titans Beast World Tour Atlantis, you're just getting 10-page stories from the worst writers in the world that flesh nothing out, but they can tie it in there and charge $8 or whatever. Whoever came up with this idea, and for some reason, it feels like a Ben Abernathy idea, to be completely honest. I think he just left DC Comics, so hopefully this practice is done. But whoever came up with the concept, and this has not been disputed by really anybody at DC Comics. We heard the rumor a year and a half, 2 years ago, that whoever is the writer of the series is the showrunner, and then they are entitled to a small percentage of the page rate. I think it might not even be small. It might be like 25, 50% of the page rate of all the other writers on the book for the tie-ins or whatever, and then they kind of manage it. Whoever thought that was a great concept needs to be drawn and quartered. You literally have destroyed any competence going on with the DC Comics events. DC Comics events already suck, and now they suck a billion times worse, because once you are entitled to a percentage of their page rate, what good writer is going to give up 25% of their page rate to Tom Taylor? What person with any dignity is going to be like, let me give some of my pay over to Mark Waid so I can write this little short story or whatever and get some credit on a DC Comics event? It absolutely sucks. It's killing any type of sustained interest in DC Comics events because they do still have the title on it. And not everyone knows you're only going to get crap in there. And every time someone buys one of these stupid tie-ins with no quality writers on them whatsoever is another opportunity for someone to go, you know what? Today is the day I realize DC Comics are just not worth it at all whatsoever. God damn it. Someone's got to get their head on straight. You would hope it would be Jim Lee, but obviously that's not going to happen. They've got to get this fixed because DC Comics haven't had a truly great event in a very long time, and Beast World has a lot of potential and there's a lot of fun to be had there. But all the tie-ins to it are absolutely abysmal. There's nothing to enjoy there. And those are just some of the things, some of the shit in comic books that are absolutely bothering. They chat my ass. I'm absolutely done with them. They need to end in 2024. Will they? Probably not. I think Crisis on Infinite Lesbians probably continues. Waller ain't going anywhere. The stupid Marvel variants becoming teams, oh God, reboots to number ones. And no way Marvel's getting off that crack. And then the tie-ins for DC, just so terrible. So definitely want to hear from you guys. What shit in comic books are you absolutely done with? Because I've had enough with all this stuff. This might not be the stuff that's destroying the industry, but it's the stuff that's destroying my hope and want to continue reading comic books. Now, if you do like comic books, you want more reviews and more comic book talk, I would say we have phenomenal content over here on the YouTube, but we have even more comic book content on the Patreon as well. There's a link in the video description. You can get the Hot or Not show with Jim, where we talk about all the new releases from DC, Marvel, and indie comic books every single Thursday. We get the pop culture talk with Aaron Sparrow on the Geek Fix. We do the doc Q&A. You get an exclusive review every single week. And I also do all the solicitations, which I mentioned earlier. And we're doing the Comics Guilds, going through Miller World and Planetary right now. Lots of fun stuff happening over on the Patreon. But I will warn you, this is for like the geekiest of the geeky, like comic book readers and stuff like that. This isn't really for normies because we definitely get in the way in the weeds.